Hey, welcome back to the David Mathas show. And actually, it's kind of funny because I was just talking to Coach Bernardo here about, I don't even remember what episode we're on now. So I can't even introduce this as episode blah, blah, blah. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in and all the great response you guys have given me from the show so far. Really cool guest on today, my friend Bernardo, Coach Bernardo, as you know him on Instagram. There's not too many people in this industry that I know that love training and the art and science of training more than Bernardo does. And so I wanted to bring him on here to talk a little bit about a couple different topics when it comes to training and get his perspective on it. And you guys are sure going to learn a lot from him. And if you don't already follow him on Instagram, it is Coach Bernardo at Coach Bernardo on Instagram. So go give him a follow because I'll tell you what, from a pure technical standpoint, he does an awesome job breaking down exercise movements and targeting different muscles, and you guys will gain a lot from them. So Bernardo, thank you for being on here.
Thank you so much, man. It's an honor to be here.
So as many of you guys might know, Coach Bernardo and I used to coach together with Team BioLane, and Bernardo has gone off on his own and is doing a great job. We were actually talking a little bit about some things he has coming up in the pipeline. So you guys definitely follow him so you can get a little bit more information on that. But I want to kind of go back to the beginning with you. As far as, how did what was your catalyst into your love and your affinity for training? Like, did it start at an early age? Did it start through sports? Like, how did it come about for you?
That's a good question. I think that different things laid together. So I'm doing what I'm doing today. So
Right.
I think the biggest influence in this journey has been sports, definitely. I've been doing, I did a sport named capoeira. It's from Brazil. It's kind of a sport / martial art / dance. So something really unique from Brazil. I practiced that for 14 years, maybe something around there. I started at 9, 10 years old, and I did all the way through school, high school, university, and I actually stopped when I graduated from university a couple of years ago. 4, 5, 6 years ago, something like that. So yeah, basically I did capoeira my whole life, and it was my passion. I practiced from Monday to Friday every single day, 2 hours per day, and then on Sundays when I was a little bit bored, another 2 hours just to practice like acrobatics, backflips, that type of stuff.
So what's this called again?
Capoeira. Capoeira. So it's like dance, acrobatics, martial art. It's super cool. For someone who does not practice this, it looks just like a dance, but it has its martial art component. And I did this for a while. I consider myself like I was probably in the top 5 of my country. I was really good at it. I practiced a ton and I was really good at it. But as you know, I am not the biggest dude, both in size and in muscle. But but back then I was super skinny. So right now I am, let me just make the calculation real quick to pounds. I'm around 145, 147 pounds. Back then I was 110, 120. So something like that. I was super skinny. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was fast. I was like powerful, but I was not strong.
Right.
And when it comes to the martial art component, I wanted to gain some weight, some muscle, so I can be a little bit more competitive,
Absolutely.
So I said, okay, I will start doing some exercise. I started with calisthenics. Before my classes, I went there to a park, 35 minutes, 45 minutes, some workout, and then I went straight into class. And I saw some results, but I said, okay, no, maybe I have to do something else. So I went to the gym, and I started going maybe twice per week, 3 times per week. And actually, I started loving the training component, like the technique part of that. And something that I encountered that probably most of your followers know, but there's a lot of bullshit in this industry. So there were like 5 coaches in the gym, and I asked something to someone, and he said something completely different than the other guy that was another coach in the same gym. And I was like, okay, I have to do some research because Clearly, most of them don't know what they're talking about, and I don't know which one is the one that is correct. Surprise, surprise, no one was correct in that gym. But yeah, I started doing some research. I started following Steve Cook at the time and Jeff Nippard, and both of them led me to Lane. So
Yeah.
I started following Lane with my wife, Manu. You know her. She was a coach herself when we started. We did the same certification together.
Oh, I
She actually used to love fitness as well. Right now, she likes it, but it's not her passion. But
right.
we started studying together. So after university, we were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. We went to my house. We studied. We used to watch Lane's videos back then. This is probably 2015, 2016,
Mhm.
and she started loving the nutrition side while I was working, loving the training side. And Lane lead us to a bunch of people in the fitness industry that are actually evidence-based, So I love this that, okay, most people don't know what you're talking about. And there's actually some science behind this. There's actually something like, it's not go there and train hard. Probably that's the most important thing, but there's actually science behind this and there's a reason. And most people are spreading misinformation. And I'm someone who hates misinformation, right? So
Right.
I said, okay, maybe I like this. And I started transitioning away from my passion from capoeira to fitness and nutrition. So I said, okay, I will start training more. I reduced the number of days to 2 of my training to capoeira, so I can go 4 to 5 times per week to the gym. And I started watching every single video from Jeff Nippard, Steve Cook, and Lane himself. So I watched all of the videos and I said, okay, I like this. Let's do a certification to learn a little bit more. And you know this guy, William Graziani.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I did his certification. He used to have an online certification. So I did his. It was fantastic. It was amazing. So
Will's a
I
great guy.
did that. And I said, okay, I like this. I like the coaching part because I used to teach capoeira. I was already a teacher. I used to teach at university. I love teaching. So I said, okay, maybe coaching is something that I like. I started doing that with my cousin, with a couple of friends, and I started to see some good results with them. Yeah, I said, okay, this is my thing. I don't know how I'm going to make a living from this because in Ecuador, it's not easy. Like,
I think a lot of times when people get into coaching, it's along those same lines too. Like, I love it. I'm good at it. Like, I love being in the gym. I want to help people, but how am I going to make a living out of this? Right. It
for
usually
sure,
starts as
I
like a
was scared.
side hustle for people.
Yeah, and I was scared. I was studying business at university at the time. My father has his own company, so the plan was always to, okay, I finish and I go directly to his company.
Right.
But I said, no, I hate this business part. Like, company. Now I have my own business, so
Yeah.
it's funny how things turn around. But yeah, I said no, no, no. I don't want to be in a desk. I don't want this executive role. I want to do something related to sport. That's been my thing my whole life. So I said, okay, I will start doing coaching. I don't know how I'm going to live from this because here a fitness instructor in the gym will make $700 per month. A good personal trainer with a lot of clients, maybe $2,000 per month.
Mm.
And I can live with that, but not with a good lifestyle. So I
Right.
said, no, I have to figure something out. At the time, Gymshark was like the big boom in the industry. And I said, okay, maybe I can become an influencer. So I will start creating social media because maybe that's my way. And well, everything, I don't know how it played around, but everything led me to Lane and by
Yeah.
Lane.
And I remember, before you came on as a coach, you were doing like infographics and stuff for what all did you do? Because I knew you were doing some like social media stuff and everything, but like I don't think I really even know the depth of what you were doing before we actually brought you on as a coach. Because I mean,
Yeah,
you would
yeah,
do some stuff for us coaches here and there, but you were also doing a lot of stuff for Lane on the side, right? So
yeah.
what? And I think this is an important transition because I've told my story quite a bit about how I got involved with Lane, and it was simply by just asking him, hey, like, what can I do for you? How can I help you? All that stuff, right? I started as a unpaid intern for a year, and just kind of learned the business of coaching and all this stuff from him. And you also took a route that I think that a lot of people need to understand and kind of compare our two routes, because what we both did and what I don't think happens enough these days with the younger generation is that we were willing to put in work for free. in order to get our foot in the door, right?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what you did in order to get your foot in the door before you even got a chance to coach anybody.
Yeah. So at the time I was coaching a couple of clients. I was doing my thing. I was also a personal trainer in the gym. I was doing a little bit of everything. I was doing cooking with my wife because she studied to be a chef. So we did like a catering service for certain people with the macros and all that stuff. I was doing everything so I can make a living with my wife.
Yep.
It came the pandemic and I lost all of my in-person clients. I had like 4 online coaching clients, which at the time I was charging $100 per month. So I was not making enough to live.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I have to do something. I am good at graphic design, a part of things I have learned with my posting. I'm going to work for free for the people that I admired the most.
Mm-hmm.
I contacted, and at the time I was talking with Noah. You remember Noah? He
Oh,
was
yeah.
a part of Team Violin as well. So I was talking with him on social media every now and then about random stuff, you know? And one day I told him like, hey, I would love to be an intern for Team Violin just to get to know you guys, just to learn from you. I don't want any money. I don't care. I don't want a position in the company. I just want to learn from you and give my 2 cents to the industry because I think that I can help in any way. And he said, okay, let me ask to Lane. He asked him and he said, yeah, take him. So I started as an intern for Noah and I was doing his social media posts. So he, not every single post, but he used to say like, okay, here's the study, break it down and make it digestible for people. So I started doing that and I said, hey, Noah, I also know a little bit about graphic design. I can make the design as well. He said, oh, okay, nice. I started making that. A couple of months after, Lane stopped working with his graphic designer. And he said, hey, I like your designs. Do you want to start working with me? And I said, of course, that's amazing. So I hopped on a call with Lane, with Holly at the time, and I started making their graphic designs. I was making for Noah the content itself, and for Lane and Holly the graphic design. At the same time, they hired Joseph to do their content, to write the content for them. A couple of things, not everything, but a couple of things. So a little bit of help, you know. So I started doing that while I was still working as a coach, you know. The pandemic came a little bit back to normal after a couple of months, and I started working with more online clients again. And I said, okay, I love working with Lane, with Holly, but I don't see this going anywhere from now, and I need to grow my business.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I will focus 100% on my thing. And I said, hey, Lane, Holly, Noah, I won't be doing, or I can't be doing graphic design for you anymore. But my wife, she's actually way better at it than I am. So if you want, you can hire them. And they said, yeah, but we will pay her. So they hired Manu. She worked for them until 1 year ago for both of them. And she was the one that were doing the graphic design for both Lane and Noah. So I stayed connected. These were a couple of months. I stayed connected with them. And then Lane started translating Fat Loss Forever. He wanted me to just check because to Spanish. Of course, I speak Spanish. So they had like the official translator and I was making like the revisions, making sure that everything was correctly, you know? So I did that. We finished that project and during this time they offered like 3 different kinds positions to be a coach. I applied 3 times to be a coach and they didn't accept me. With reason, they accept Joseph, Astrid, like phenomenal coaches, master degrees, PhDs. And then I said, you know what, maybe it's not for me. At that time, it was almost 2 years after we started. So I was connected with them for full 2 years without being a coach. And I said, okay, maybe it's not my call. Maybe God doesn't want me to involve with this company. I don't know, destiny, whatever. I will focus on my company, which it was doing fine. I said that 2 weeks later, Sam contacted me. Hey, do you want to be a coach? And I said, hell yeah, I want to be a coach. So that's how it started. It was a long journey. I worked for them for 2+ years before becoming a coach. So I did graphic design, content, help translating the book. Most of that, the first couple of months for free. And you said something like, this generation is not, they think that they have to get paid for everything. And I understand that feeling, but if you want to be involved with bigger names, bigger persons that you, companies, you have to be willing to put some work for free so they know who you are.
Yeah, you got to think about long term, right? I mean, it's like what we tell our clients, right? Don't sacrifice what you want long term for what you want now, right? It's kind of the same principle. But that's a really cool backstory. And actually, I've been there the entire time, but there's actually a few things in there that I didn't even know. So that was kind of cool to learn a little bit about that. But when you first started getting into training and actually getting into the gym, you were kind of making that transition over from the I can't pronounce it. Say it again. What is that?
Capoeira.
Capoeira. Yeah, I'll get that right. I'm going
Similar.
to go look that up on YouTube and watch some of that when we get done here. But when you were kind of making that transition and wanting to get more into the actual like hypertrophy and strength training aspect of it, what were some of the obstacles that you ran into at the beginning? Like, was it, some people when they get into the gym for the first time, they're like, oh, I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't really know what I'm doing, any of this stuff. Or did you get in there and like you were just comfortable right away?
A little bit of both. I was super skinny, and when I started going, I was probably the skinniest one in the gym. And I said, like, okay, it's embarrassing to come here and start doing lateral raises with 5 pounds, like the lightest dumbbells in the gym. So on one end, I was a little bit like embarrassed, maybe, but it lasted maybe 2 weeks or something like that,
Yeah.
because I am someone who has a really good eye. This will sound horrible, but to spot incorrect things when it comes to the human movement. Okay, so I was a really good capoeira teacher because it's super technical, and I always like watch 2 times the movement, and I said, okay, this is incorrect because of this. Just change this, and you will be able to do it. I was really good at it, and I realized that I was the same when I started training. So I used to look technique from someone, and I said, okay, I have to change this. I went to the mirror and I changed that. And in a matter of a couple of weeks, I was sure that I had, to the standard of that time, my standard, good technique. So I said,
Yeah.
okay, I know what I'm doing. Of course, I didn't know, but I became confident super quick because I said, okay, this is easy. I can do this. Well, at the same time, other people that were going to the gym like for a similar amount of time than me, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to squat, how to do a bench press. I was able to see, okay, these guys are doing something wrong. So yeah, it was interesting to transition because capoeira is a lot of backflips, a lot of kicks, something super artistic and fun.
Yeah.
Going to the gym at the beginning was like, okay, this is boring. I have to lift up, down, up, down.
Yep.
But I became obsessed with the technique part. Like, okay, what happens if I change this? Where do I feel this? What happens if I move this leg here when doing a squat? Oh, I can go lower. So I actually got in love with training because of that part. Like, okay, how can I change this movement to make it better? And that's where everything started.
You just said something a minute ago about gaining that confidence after a couple weeks, and it's like that's I think one of the areas where people lose track of starting anything new, whether it be the gym or anything like that. Like you're not going to be confident going into it. I mean, you could hype yourself up and be like, "Yeah, I got this," whatever. But confidence comes from action, and if you're not going to actually take the steps to take that first step and then take that second step and keep going back and being consistent, you're never going to build the confidence. And that's where I think a lot of people, when they get frustrated with not building muscle quick or building strength quick, and they're like, I can't do this. It's like, how much time are you actually giving yourself, right? And if you are new to the gym and this is a whole new world for you, like, are your expectations unrealistic going into it in terms of how long it's going to take you to feel confident? I mean, someone who is, I can vouch, very technical on like you love that stuff. You love digging into that. And it came a little bit quicker to you, but you also had an athletic background and you kind of came from that too. And you dug into this deep. Someone that's just starting at the gym, whether they be 18, 19, or 50, right? Like if you're not going to stay consistent with it and you're not going to put in the time and the effort, you're never going to gain the confidence you need in order to keep going forward. So I think that's a really good lesson for people to hear from you, is that like, that confidence came, but you were even a little like at first, like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try it and I'm going to learn from my mistakes, and you're going to learn from other people's mistakes. And kind of the foundation of who you are as a person is just kind of like, I'm going to try something. If I fail, I'm going to learn from it. If I succeed, I'm going to learn from that too. And that's a really,
Exactly.
really important quality to have as a coach and as an educator and everything. And what would you say, and this is going to be more of a, I guess, not really a philosophical question, just a direct question. What is your favorite movement in the gym?
Oof. This one is a really difficult one. I would say it's a love-hate relationship, but I would say squat.
Barbell
I
squat?
love squatting. Yeah, barbell squat.
Okay.
I love squatting. I have a wonderful technique, but I have a fascination with the squat for a couple of reasons.
Let me hear it.
The first one is I have been always skinny. I have one older brother and an older sister, way older, 16 and 14 years older.
Okay.
So I got the worst genetics in the family. So I have always had really skinny legs. Okay.
Yeah.
My brother and sister, they have like really good genetics in that sense. You see my brother, he never does any exercise. He has huge legs, okay, and muscular legs, So they always made fun of me, like, hey, you are exactly like your dad. You have skinny legs. And when I went to the gym, they said, don't forget to train legs. And I got obsessed with this because I said, I gotta prove them wrong. And
Yeah.
I did a squat every single lower body because I said, okay, this gotta be the best leg movement. Everyone does it. I will get super good at squatting. And I got obsessed with squatting and hip thrusts at that point. Right now, I don't do hip thrusts anymore. It's too painful. But when I was doing the squats, I said, okay, I have to become really good at it. And then I noticed most people just ego lift with the squat. And I said, okay, that looks awful for me. Yeah, they can do with double the weight, but they just like go 1 inch down and then go up again. No, I will go all the way down. And I just got this fascination of over time because I had the flexibility, but I was not strong enough to go with even the bar all the way down. So I said, okay, with time, I will practice on going slow, lower. And I got obsessed with the squat. And I think that I have a beautiful squat. So I love that because of the story.
Yeah.
I hate squatting because it's so freaking hard. Like
It
it's
is.
one of those exercises that I have to mentally be prepared for a couple of minutes before getting into the rack and say, okay, let's go. I do like 5 warm-up sets just because I need to get into the zone and say, okay, I am ready, So it's not my favorite exercise in terms of, okay, I really enjoy doing this, but because I enjoy the squat movement itself, So
Okay. So
I would say that one.
flip side of that,
Go ahead.
what's the least favorite?
Ooh, least favorite exercise. To be honest, I think enjoy every single exercise. There's not an exercise that I don't like doing. I would say barbell overhead press. It just feels a little bit weird to me, but I don't have like an exercise that I say, oh my God, I hate this.
Yeah.
Any exercise that makes it feel like cardio. If it's super high rep ranges, like walking lunges or something like that, I hate that. Like I want to do it. I don't care if I need to do it. I just won't do it.
Yeah. Gotcha. So, you and I, we've been around a lot of people training and, different people in the industry, different people in, our own gyms and stuff like that. Who's been someone, if you had to pick, I guess, I don't want to say mentor, that's not the right word. Role model, like who's been your biggest role model when it comes to, and this doesn't even have to be someone who lifts the heaviest weight in the gym, just somebody when it comes to teaching and informing about training in general. Who's been your biggest
I have
influence?
4, and I will say the 4 because I think everyone should follow these guys. And it's not nothing against girls; they're
Oh yeah,
fantastic in the industry.
for
There are
sure.
some, but the 4 that have had the most influence in the way I do things, the way I teach things, how I like their content is Lane, of course, Eric Helms, Mike Israel, and Jeff Nippert. I think that these 4 are amazing communicators in the industry. Every single one of them have had the biggest influence. If you make me choose one, just one, I would go with Eric Helms. I think that
Okay.
One, he has one of the best books and probably one of the first quote unquote evidence-based books when it comes to strength training,
Yeah.
the muscle and strength pyramids. Two, his way of communication is fantastic. Three, he's just someone who knows a lot, not a little bit, a lot about a lot of different things. So
Right.
he's pretty well rounded in every single thing regarding strength training, nutrition, and his critical thinking is just amazing. So yeah, I would go with him, to be honest.
I thought for sure you were going to say Mike Israetel. I know how much you enjoy and you respect him and stuff. And I remember at the Arnold last year, you and Jackie and Joseph were
I'm a
all
fanboy.
yeah, definitely a
Yeah,
fanboy. There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah,
He's a good guy.
yeah, I was too excited about meeting Mike at the Arnold. Now that I'm thinking 1 year later, probably too excited. I love him, but yeah,
Yeah.
I would have to choose Eric Helms over Mike.
Yeah, usually everyone's first Arnold is like that, where you're like super super pumped to meet the person you've been following for a long time, and then you look back on it, and then you keep in touch with them, and you communicate with them, and you're like, man, I really did fanboy over him a little too much. I thought it was hilarious though, because that was like all you, Joseph, and Jackie were all worried about. It's just gotta meet Mike, gotta find Mike, gotta find Mike. That was great though. What do you think has been the biggest lesson that lifting has taught you in your life from when you started
Patience,
now? Patience.
patience.
That's a good
You
one. Talk
have
to
to
us about
put the
that.
work over time. Like the thing about lifting is that for everyone will be a little bit different in terms of results.
Yeah.
There are people with amazing genetics that will see results fast, quote unquote fast, but they still have to be patient. They have to be patient on learning the technique, learning how to train hard. It's super difficult to learn how to train hard. I
Yeah.
just know a couple of people that they got going to the gym for the first time and they actually train hard. You need to learn about different things. Even if you have the best genetics, you have to be patient, you have to be disciplined. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if you're someone with not the best genetics, it will take you way, way much more time. And if you are looking to see results in a couple of weeks, even months, when it comes to muscle building, this is not the thing for you. You have to be patient. And this really resonates with something Joseph, when I first met him over the internet, actually, when he became part of Team Violin, he needed slash wanted to start making content. He had 200 followers at that time, and
Yeah.
I had like 2,000. So I was way ahead of him in terms of social media. Now he has 25 more followers than I do, 25 times more.
Yeah. He's blown
And
everyone up.
something he told me, I really resonate this with lifting is, man, I don't know anything about social media. I know that I know about stuff, and I know that I am persistent. I will post 5 times per week for at least the next 3 years. And if I don't gain a single follower, I don't care. I will just post 5 times per week for the next 3 years. And I don't know if he remembers this, but he told me over a message, probably have it here. And he did that for the first 3 years of him making content. And I think that until this day, he has posted 5 times per week, every single day, regardless of the following. And
Mhm.
I am a pretty good, he's probably my best friend. We talk every single day. And I would say maybe 6 months ago, he just started focusing on, okay, I have to grow my social media because this will help my business. How do I make better content, more catchy content? How do I focus on the hook of the video? Before that, he just focused on being consistent. It's the same with lifting. And to be honest, this has been a really big lesson for me. I has always been a consistent person, but I was pretty good at capoeira. So if I had to try a different movement, a new movement, it took me 1 hour and I was able to do it. With lifting, it was not like that. It was months before I started seeing some results. So I can translate that to every single thing in my life. Right now with business, with growing my coaching company and future programs, projects, I just been consistent. Every single day, I put the work regardless of what is going to happen. This past week, I have been working for 12 plus hours every single day. Last night, I went to bed at 11:50 p.m. I woke up at 5:50 a.m. So I slept less than 5 hours. And I don't know if this new project that I'm about to launch is going to be successful. And I don't care about the results. I just focus on being consistent and put in the work.
Yeah, that's so good. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things for people in anything these days, especially when we live in a world in general where you can pretty much get anything at the snap of your fingers. You don't have to go hunt your own food, right? You got Amazon that'll deliver anything, maybe sometimes that day. And people just have gotten very comfortable with getting things they want really quick. And I think there's a disservice in society these days in terms of school where they just don't teach properly about the body enough anymore, and your health in general, and how the metabolism actually works, different energy pathways for training. Like, they don't teach that stuff anymore. And a lot of people don't understand that, like, training for hypertrophy is not the same as training for strength. Overall, maximal strength. And I think that's probably a good topic to go into here too. But, having that patience to see something through, right? To understand that, listen, you are going to suck at this for a little bit, and that's okay. All right. You sucked at walking for a little bit when you were a baby. And look at you now. Right. But, I think, like I said, just a natural transition into that other topic. I get into this conversation with a lot of people when I'm doing inquiries with them, consultations with them about, like, hey, I want to put on muscle, but I also want to diet. Right. And kind of talking to them about, well, these are kind of two competing goals right here. Right. So, like, what is the most important and stuff? And so, when you're dieting down, obviously you're going to be taking in less calories, right? I think everybody should know calories in versus calories out at this point. What are some things that, when somebody is trying to go through a fat loss phase, but they want to keep their training intensity as high as possible and maximize as much muscle retention as they can, what are some things that they need to focus on in the gym with the training?
In the gym, okay. So the most important thing is to understand that your training shouldn't change much. If you're dieting and your goal is to maximize muscle gain or retention, in this case, your training shouldn't change much. A lot of people say, okay, I have to burn more calories. I will do 20
Right.
plus reps sets. That's a big mistake. I don't know who's the ones who says this. Maybe Lane. The first time that I heard this is the best way to maintain the muscle that you have is by training exactly how you train to gain that muscle. So don't change much your training. It should be pretty similar. Actually, I would say it would be 99% similar. And that 1%, the only difference will be that you probably at some point will have fewer resources. You have less calories. And recovery won't be at some point. It's not necessarily at the beginning of the dieting phase, probably by the end, and probably the more weight you lose, the resources will be less. You will notice that you get fatigued quicker. You will probably have to take a deload quicker because some joint pain here and there, or because you're not progressing in your gym lifts anymore. So just auto-regulate. Follow the same programs that you're doing when you're training, or the same structure, the same principles. And the only thing that will change is that you'll have to auto-regulate your training. So let me give you a practical example with Jackie. We both know Jackie, coach, team violin coach. She's my client. And I have been training with her or coaching her for over a year and a half now. We have gone maintenance, gaining, fat loss phase. And this is super, super simple to understand with this practical example. On average, her mesocycle before her needing a deload when she is in a gaining phase is around 8 to 9 weeks. So she trains hard for 8 to 9 weeks before needing a deload. Taking a step back from the gym, for the ones who don't know what a deload is just reducing volume, doing a little bit less, reducing intensity, not training super hard, so you can maintain your muscle, but decrease fatigue, decrease the stress in your body, so you're able to keep pushing. That's on a gaining phase. When she's in a fat loss phase, on the other hand, on average, she will be deloading after 6 or 7 weeks. So 2 weeks less of hard training.
Yep.
That's one example. In my case, I don't notice much difference, to be honest. Probably just 1 week less here and there of productive training, and that's it. So you'll have to auto-regulate. That's the main thing. Now, on what to focus? Volume. You need to still be training with not a volume. You might be able to handle a little bit less probably, but don't try to reduce volume because, okay, I'm dieting, I have to do less because I have less resources. No,
Right.
try to do as much as you can while still recovering. And of course, time is
100%.
not a concern within your time limitations. Intensity, you still have to train hard. Some people out there say, okay, you have to train harder to maintain that muscle. I don't agree. There's kind of a connection between volume and intensity. If you push too much intensity and you always go to failure, probably volume will be a little bit less. Not necessarily a bad thing, but probably not a good idea to train always to failure if you have fewer resources, right? So
Absolutely.
intensity, pretty much the same. Try to train close to failure. I would say 3 reps in reserve or less across your training program, and that's basically it. What I have noticed is that after the initial phase of your fat loss phase, let's say you're doing a 16, 20-week fat loss phase, after the first month and a half, and this is just from personal experience, I don't know of any research discussing this, is exercise selection. Okay, once you have less resources, once you start to feel that hunger, when you start to feel like the energy is a little bit lower, it's probably a good idea to start using more stable exercises, machine-based exercises, and not the free weights, back squat, sumo squat, sumo deadlift, or conventional deadlift. Probably those exercises are going to be too hard systemically, and it could be both physiologically or maybe psychologically that it's
True.
super hard. It's super hard. So my personal experience, I am in dieting phase right now, and the last mesocycle I had to take out, or I have to change from the previous mesocycle to this one, from a free barbell back squat, free weight, to a Smith machine squat. Why? Because after the second set on the back squat, I was destroyed. Like I was like, okay, I cannot continue with this session. Like I am super tired. I changed to the Smith machine squat. I can now do 4 sets without a problem. So maybe the free weights that require more of you because you have to stabilize the movement, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you don't die under the bar. Those are
It's
going to be a
dual
little bit more
tension.
taxing. Yeah, those are a little bit more taxing. So that would be the only thing that maybe you have to consider if you feel like it's going to be beneficial. For some people, they maybe don't feel that difference and you can continue with the same exercises.
Yeah, I think exercise selection is a really important topic to touch on because I'm sure you're the same way. You'll get people that'll ask you like, do I need to barbell squat? Do I need to bench press? Do I need to do this? And it's like, do you need to? Depends on your goals, right? Like if you're a power lifter, yeah, you need to barbell back squat. You need to bench press. You need to deadlift off the floor. If you're someone who is just trying to get healthy, trying to get stronger, you have no plans on competing in anything specific, right? Learning how to pick exercises that are going to support your goals and your recovery and your body type, frankly, are so important. Not everybody. I shouldn't say this. I kind of refine what I used to think. I used to say not everybody's built to barbell back squat. I don't really say that anymore. I think that you just got to find the way that it works for you. But I don't think that everybody has to barbell back squat. Hack squat, perfect example. You talked about the hack squat, right? Everybody automatically thinks when they hear squat, they think barbell back squat. Well, there's various variations that can do exactly what you need to do. And picking the right exercise that is right for you, your body type, your training ability, your training history, and your overall goals is going to keep you healthier and progress a lot quicker, right? Like I can't tell you the last time I barbell back squatted. Like I would at this point, I'd rather just get on a Smith machine and do it, to be completely honest. But like hack squat is one of my favorite movements of all time. That's like probably my favorite. That or leg press are probably my favorite lower body movements of all time. But how important is it in safety and health to make sure that you understand that you're picking the right movement for what you're doing?
Can you hear me? I think I lost you for a second.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So in terms of like, let me rephrase this now. When you're working with a client, right? How much are you guys talking about their training history, their goals, all this stuff, and talking about proper exercise selection. Because I know that you don't just automatically program a
You
barbell.
hear me? I lost you again. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I can hear you. You can't hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. Yeah, again, sorry. If you can repeat one last
Yeah,
time, I'm so
that's all
sorry.
right. So when you're working with a client, all right, and you guys are kind of developing the training program for what this client's going to do, how much are you talking to them about their training history, where they're at right now, how much time they have available to devote to it, and what their overall goals are? Because all of that is going to take into account on what selection of exercises is going to be best for them. So take us through a little bit about like what you're talking to your clients about when you're trying to gather information in terms of building their training program.
Yeah, wonderful question. I think that if you have hire any coach, not just me, that should be a really big part of the conversation. And
Yep.
I don't necessarily have a conversation with them. I make them fill out a questionnaire to gather this data. So exercise history, like have you had any injuries around any movement, right? Not because that movement is bad for them, but because psychologically probably they're going to be afraid of that movement. And starting with that movement right away in the coaching journey is not going to be a good idea. We have to ease our way into that movement. So injury history is specific to any specific exercises, right? What exercise do they enjoy and what exercise they don't enjoy? So that's something that I really take into consideration. You said something like there's no a single exercise that you need to do if you want to be healthy or build muscle. Again, if your goal is sport specific, you will have to do certain things. But if your goal is maximizing muscle gain or just be healthy, I can't think of any particular exercise that you must do. You
I
have
think let me interrupt you there because I agree with you, but I think there is a caveat, and I think you'll probably agree with this. And if you don't, tell me by all means. There are movement patterns that are important, right? Being able to hip hinge, right? Being able to squat down and pick something up, being able to do things like that. But when we're talking about a specific exercise, we're talking about a movement type, like a barbell squat or a flat bench press. We, for general health, you need to be able to hip hinge. You need to be able to squat down. You need to be able to do these daily life functions. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit before you kept going,
yeah,
because people might be like, well,
100%.
what? Like, I don't
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
work.
100%. I completely agree with that. And so, yeah, as I was saying, like, there's no need to do a specific exercise. Movements on board, but
Yep.
there's no need to do any particular exercise. So I really take into consideration what the client likes and don't like. Because if you hate the squat, or if you have, as you say, you're not quote unquote built for the squat, which I think it's a thing. If you want to maximize squat growth, but you have a squat like Lane because he has a really long femur, you're going to be doing kind of a good morning, not a squat, because you're going to be leaning forward, right? That's probably if you're trying to maximize squat development, the squat in that case is not going to be probably the best exercise to pick, right? So probably hack squat, leg press is going to be way better. So not only if they enjoy it or not, also if it's going to be useful for them, right? So for example, there's some people that they cannot do barbell bench press because they have an injury in the shoulder, and every time they do it, they feel uncomfortable. It's not that the barbell bench press is necessarily injurious, but for that specific person, it's probably not going to be the best one. So you have to have different tools on your toolbox. And as you were saying, like it's a movement pattern. So pressing, okay, you don't like the flat bench press, do an incline. Okay, you can do the incline, maybe do a machine, maybe do a push-up, maybe do flies, maybe do dumbbells. You have a ton of different tools to do the same movement pattern that will target to a similar degree the same muscles in a similar way, right? Of course, there's some caveats there. Incline is going to be different than flat. The flies will not target your triceps, different things, right? But yeah, I think that taking into consideration both goals, preferences, and what the person don't like, it's really important when doing this. So if someone tells you you have to do this, and I've heard this,
Oh,
I
100%.
actually have a really good friend of mine who we always discuss. He's not a fitness coach. He just likes to lift, and he always messaged me about everyone should squat, barbell back squat. everyone should be doing that because that's the best exercise. The best exercise for who? Under what context, you know? So no, there's no single exercise that you should be doing. Focus on the patterns, the movements as a whole thing, and choose the ones that are better for you in terms of preference and goals.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And going back to something you said a little bit ago, and you touched on it really briefly, and I think it's a really good segment into another topic here, is that you were talking about how as training intensity goes up, right, volume might have to drop, or vice versa. If volume goes up, you're going to have to train with less intensity. We get into a lot of gray area with people where they're doing a lot of junk volume, right? Where they're just, they're I mean, I've heard of people going in there and doing like 20 or 25 sets during a workout. And it's like, they don't understand why they're not growing. And it's like, well, you're doing a bunch of junk volume. Your intensity is not high enough, and you're doing all this volume. You're not creating that stimulus that your body actually needs for growth. So can you talk a little bit about junk volume for those people that might not understand what we're talking about? And also, how do we eliminate that and make sure that we're maximizing the most out of each training session?
Okay, nice. This is probably not the answer that you're expecting, but let's go with it.
Let's go with it.
I have changed my view about junk volume over time.
Okay.
At the beginning, I was like, the more you train, the more you grow. Of course, that's not necessarily true. Then I came into this concept. I think that thanks to Jeff Nippard about junk volume, right? There's a certain limit of what it's going to stimulate your muscles. Above that, you're not going to stimulate them. Probably you're going to add fatigue, and it will be like this. You start improving, but then it goes down because you're too fatigued.
Yep.
And I do think that there's junk volume. What I don't think is what we used to believe, and to be honest, based on recent data. But let's talk about junk volume for a second, and then I can go into the details. Basically, it's doing volume that is not going to be more stimulative for muscle growth, or that could be stimulative, but it adds so much fatigue that it ends up not being beneficial for you, right? Because you're not recovering from it, and if you don't recover, you don't grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some research, I can remember now an article or like a research review from James Krieger talking about like the upper limit of volume per muscle group on a single session. And he, based on the research, he interprets that around 8 to 10 sets per session is more than enough to maximize muscle building. Above that is probably junk volume and it's not going to be any more beneficial, or it will actually hurt your gains, right? Okay. So that's one part of the story. The other part about junk volume is volume that you're doing that is not going to add any stimulus. And I think that this is the biggest problem, what you were saying. Some people, just because they want to do more, they don't train hard enough.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the problem. Quality over quantity always. Okay. So Mike Israel has this like concept, and I think that Eric Helms as well. He talks about this. Like, we have quality. Quality will be, of course, technique. Mm-hmm. Load itself, like we have to lift more than 30% of your one rep max in order to grow. You cannot lift a pencil 1,000 times and grow, even though you're lifting for the whole day. So there should be a minimum amount of load, and then it comes intensity. This falls under the umbrella of quality. Mm-hmm. If you don't train hard enough, it won't matter. And a lot of people out there are just focusing on, okay, I want to do more. They do 20 sets of chest in one session and they don't grow because they're not training hard. Most people, and I say this from my personal experience, won't be able to do 20 sets of hard training in a single session. Yeah. I know that I'm not going to go to the gym and do 4 sets of barbell bench press, 4 sets of dumbbell bench press, 4 sets incline, 4 sets decline, and then flies. No way. I cannot continue with like my pecs will tear, tear apart. So that's the biggest problem. Okay. Now, what I do think is that the other term of junk volume of doing too many sets, like of productive training, like above 10, I don't think that's true anymore. So we have a recent study, I can't remember the name of the researcher, that they did up to 52 sets per week of quad training. 52 sets per week of quad training, divided into 3 sessions. It was something like 18 sets per session, something like that. Okay, that's a ton. They did like 7 sets of squats, 7 sets of leg press, and 3 sets of leg extension, something like that. I can't remember the details, but it was up to 52 sets. And they saw more growth than the ones that were doing 20 sets. Okay, so what I want to say, I guess, is if you do more, some people will be able to grow as long as you're recovering. Now, here's the caveat, and here is the important thing. You have to recover, and how much extra grow will doing 52 set sprints? Not much. It was something minimal. You're probably going to get most of your gains with those 10 sets. If I would have to say a random number out of my head right now, not evidence-based, I'm not citing this paper, just out of my head, I would say 95+% of your results will come from those 10 sets. There's no need to go to the 52 sets. But that's where I disagree with the jump volume term. Like, you can do more, and if you're recovering, you can grow, but I don't think it's worth it for most people.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to talk about that. I think that there probably that term needs to be replaced with like junk effort or something.
Yeah. I love that.
Because I mean, that's, for decades, that's what it's been associated with, is just more sets and more volume overall, not contributing to it, but it's really the effort level in that. And like you said before, I mean, I don't know too many people that are going within a rep or two of failure and, on 3 or 4 working sets and can do more than, maybe 10 or 12 sets in a workout. Like, you're just not going to be able to do that. And then people that also are not taking any rest days off, like, you're not doing yourself any favor. If you're going so hard, and I'll tell people this all the time, I do not program anybody over 5 days of weight training a week. If you should be training hard enough for 5 days that your body's screaming for a couple days off, right? And then also strategically place those off days at a point. So what I like to do, one of my favorite kind of setups during the week is like, train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, take Thursday off, train Friday, Saturday, take Sunday off. Because you can, like, for me, I know that, like, when I was training really, really hard, sometimes I would try to push 4 days in a row, and that 4th day was always trash. Like, but if you can stop that right before you get to that point of like going over the edge and you get that rest, that's just enough for you to come back and train hard for a couple more days before you take another rest. And it's going to be different for everybody. So maybe some people need 2 days and then they have to take a rest. Mm-hmm. There's no right or wrong. But you can't be out there training 7 days a week and doing all this high volume every single day. Those are the ones that are just stuck in the same place that they were 5-10 years ago. They're not making, and then they're getting frustrated because they're not making any change. But psychologically, they can't see themselves not being in the gym. They can't. Yeah. It's an addiction, right? And that addiction is what's kind of holding you back big time from making the progress. So understanding, different energy pathways in the body, understanding proper rest and recovery, proper exercise selection, when to deload. And that could be a whole nother podcast that we talk about, is like deloading and how you do that. Because there's a lot of different strategies people use for that too. And once again, there's no right or wrong, but, for me, what I like to do with clients is I like to try to keep the weight lifted about the same, but cut the volume in half. If someone's super fatigued, like really, really fatigued, then maybe we'll back the weight down a little bit and the sets and reps. But I know there's tons of different patterns that people do with deloads. What's something just real quick to touch on? Like, how do you like to deload for people?
I like to deload pretty similar to what you said. I decrease volume. Mm-hmm. I would say anywhere from 30 to 50%, so almost half.
Yep.
I would say most of my clients, when they deload, they perform between 4 to 8 sets per week for that muscle group.
Okay.
Within that range, most people. And then I do decrease effort. I ask them to leave 5 reps in reserve. So actually like easy training for 2 reasons. One, to be completely sure that fatigue is down and we can push super hard. But more than that, the psychological break. I know that there's people that love to train hard. Mm-hmm. But if I have to bet, most people don't like to train hard because it's hard, right? It's painful. It's painful. And having that break of, okay, I can take a step back. I go there, I work on technique, I chill, I can have a conversation with people around me, I can socialize a little bit in the gym. From the psychological perspective, and this is just my experience, people actually benefit a lot from that. Like, okay, this was an easy week. I am ready to continue pushing hard next week. Based on research, to be honest, we don't have much research. Actually, we don't have, I think we have one study on deloads to this day. There's a really good review from Dr. Pack. I think it's the leading author, that it was just like interview to experts. And I think they interviewed Eric Kenoms, Mikey Rettel, even Lane was in that interview, I guess. And everyone did things differently because we don't have research to say, okay, this is the best way. But what most people agree is you either decrease volume or decrease intensity or both of them. The goal is just to have an easy week so you can continue pushing hard. And probably the most beneficial part will be the psychological part.
For sure. And it's the same way with diet breaks too. I mean, I was part of the study that showed that from a metabolic standpoint, it's not really that much more beneficial, right? But from a psychological standpoint, it's just night and day different. And with the deloads and stuff, I kind of, it depends on what the reason for the deload is, right? Like, is it like just mental, like you're just burnt out, you're tired, something like that? Or is it like your joints are achy and you're in some pain? Like, that's going to determine too whether or not I keep load fairly close to the same, weight fairly close to the same, or if we decrease it too. If it's more of like I'm just kind of mentally not into it, I need a little bit of a break sort of thing, like I'll probably try to keep weight used fairly close to where they're at, but just cut the volume in half, right? So they can feel like they're doing something, but they're not overdoing it. But if someone's like, my joints hurt, like I'm not recovering well, things like that, then we need to back that weight down, give those joints a little bit of a chance to recover. Maybe even if they're doing something like they're doing a lot of free weights, right? Maybe going to like cables or some machine stuff to kind of help, give a little bit of a break to the body, because systemic overload is a huge issue that people deal with, especially when they're pushing hard and they're doing a lot of volume and they're not nourishing themselves properly. They're not sleeping properly. There's just so much that goes into it and everything. But, from a training aspect and stuff, it's so important that I think that the concept, like, get more out of doing less, is something that people need to kind of take to heart a little bit more, because you got to think about it. We have so much stress going on our body. Like, we have work stress, we have family stress, we have commitments, we have all this stuff. And then on top of that, we're asking our body to lift a lot of heavy weight all the time, right? And our bodies are like this stress cup, right? So stress from work, stress from family, stress from training. It just takes one little drop for everything to overflow and affect every area of your life too. So people have to be smart about their training. I get it. Bernardo and I, we love to train. That's what we do. We love it. It's great. But you have to learn how to take a step back from time to time, right? Have that bigger picture, that longer term vision of where you're wanting to go, and understand you're not a robot. Like, you're a human being. You're not a robot that can just keep doing the same thing over and over and over every single day and not have anything go wrong. Like, injuries are going to be a part of lifting if you lift heavy enough and long enough. So it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, right? But you can incorporate some of the things that Bernardo was saying in terms of proper load management and exercise selection and rest days and things like that to try to minimize the extensiveness of whatever injury occurs, right? Hopefully you don't ever have something that keeps you out of the gym for weeks at a time or a month or so at a time, but you're going to get these little strains every now and then, and listening to your body, learning how to deload and all this stuff. Bernardo talks a lot about this stuff, so you guys definitely need to give him a follow. But man, I'm just so glad we got to jump on here and have a little conversation. I miss you, man. I know we haven't got a chance to talk for a while, and I apologize for that, but I'm glad to hear you're doing so well. And for those of you guys that didn't hear at the beginning, his Instagram is at Coach Bernardo, Coach.Bernardo.
Coach.Bernardo, yeah.
Yeah, Coach.Bernardo. So go give him a follow. Where else can they find you, or you want to plug anything else while you're on here?
Right now, only on Coach.Bernardo. Yeah, Yeah, maybe I can keep the announcement here. Or stay tuned. We are launching
It's
with
it.
someone that you guys might know as well. In the next couple of weeks, we're launching a big project that most people will benefit this, especially people that love to train, love their nutrition, but they don't want to invest in a coach for any particular reason. This might be the service for you. So stay tuned. And no, thank you so much, man. It was a wonderful conversation. It's an honor to be here. I know that there are amazing guests coming, so it's honestly an honor to be in the same place as them. And yeah, I know this podcast will be amazing. So keep going it.
Oh, thank you, man. You've worked really hard to get to where you're at, and I really commend you for that. One thing I like to do with people when we leave the podcast here is there a specific quote or saying or anything that has really resonated with you, that has guided you through your life, or kind of goes along with what you're doing now?
No pain, no gain. No, I'm just kidding.
That's actually really good. That's a good one.
To be honest, I'm going to be honest. No, I'm not a big quote
Not a
person.
big
Like
quote
I've
person.
never been like, okay, this quote is amazing. I
Yeah,
will live under this code. No, so I will fail with that one, but I will think maybe for a future podcast. It's a good
awesome.
question to ask, so I will find a one that I will live
He's a
by.
man that follows. He's a man that follows his own guidance, and I love it. Bernardo, thank you again, man. It's good to see you, and I'll drop all your stuff below so you guys go give him a follow. And thank you guys for tuning in. Please subscribe, like, share, do all that good stuff. It helps the podcast out and allows me to hopefully get some better equipment and get some guests in house and do all this to improve the quality of the podcast. So good seeing you, my friend. Take care of yourself. All right.